Hey guys, CJ with Roswell Astronomy. So hopefully you watched Road Trip Part 1, which was my experience of going out to the Charlie Elliott Astronomy Club out east of Atlanta. Had a great time, was an awesome group of folks, and really thoroughly enjoyed myself. So before I left that evening, I took the video camera out into the John Wood astronomy field and I asked several of the members if they'd be willing to be on camera and talk to us a little bit and maybe offer a few suggestions to somebody who's just starting out. So let's take a look at that.
Okay, so I'm out in the field with Kevin. We've gotten done with the big show. Pretty much is what it looked like inside. It was a lot of fun, a lot of great presenters that went on. Very inviting, warm environment. And so now we're out here at the John Wood Astronomy Field, and I'm standing here with Kevin. Kevin, yep. Say hello to you too.
Hey, how's it going?
There's Kevin. And what have you got? What's your gear here?
It's a mishmash. So we have a Celestron CGEM DX, which is a very heavy-duty mount. It's heavy physically, bringing it out. On top of that, we have a carbon fiber version of a Explore Scientific triplet. So it's an APO triplet refractor.
Okay.
952 millimeter focal length. So
that's
not too crazy.
127?
Yes.
127. I got the steel version of the 127.
Okay. Yeah, this is like maybe a pound lighter or something. And then we have a moonlight focuser on there. I have a homemade motor. Well, not the motor's not homemade, but I mean a rig on there for autofocusing.
Okay, so there's other options than just using the stepper motor package, but obviously Moonlight Focuser, our friend Ron over there, who's we covered before on this focuser. So this is more of a DIY, or is this a kit?
No, this is a DIY.
It's a DIY? Okay.
The circuit controlling it is, I saw it on cloudy nights, and there's, I think his name's Robert Brown. Mm-hmm. So shout out to him for designing the circuit.
Okay.
So it's Arduino controller, and there's sketches out there for it, and there's ASCOM drivers. So this is ASCOM driven. So Sequence Generator Pro can run it. It's really nice. Autofocus is really a nice thing.
That makes it big time.
Yeah.
And what's the camera? We're shooting mono because we have a filter wheel, of course. Right. And what kind of camera? This is a ZWO?
This is a ZWO kit all the way around.
Okay.
It's the 1600 mono.
That's a good camera. I got that one myself.
Type 3. And I've got a heater on it. And then this is a ZWO. Actually, this is a color ZWO camera. I'm just using as a finder. And it's on as a guider, so it's an inline guider, and I have the ZWO filter wheel.
And if you remember in the last episodes when we were talking about guiders, we were talking about off-axis guiders as well as using a guide scope. But you can use an off-axis guider most effectively when you're using an SCT. But we also pointed out you can use it on a refractor, which is what he's got right here. And is that a mini? A ZWO mini OAG guider?
No, this is just the regular ZWO.
Just the standard one.
I did have an Orion thin axis on there.
Okay.
It was a little wobbly. It was an older model, and they didn't quite have the design matured at the time. So I just went ahead and got this from ZWO. So it's all ZWO.
And your camera. So this is a color camera. So you can also use that for planetary, but obviously we're not using planetary right now. We're just.
Although after the presentation, I'm kind of tempted. Yeah, because I figure if you're doing planetary, you don't really need a guider.
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's true. That's absolutely
instead of bringing
true.
out a separate camera for guiding,
just use that one.
Right.
Well, awesome. So what objects are you going after tonight?
Mostly M51. Okay. I don't have any good pictures of that, and tonight's a really good night to get that. Or the pinwheel. So 2 galaxy objects. This is a really nice galaxy scope.
It is.
Visual.
It is.
It does a good job.
Well, awesome. Well, we'll let you get set up.
All right.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay. Hope to have some pictures to show later.
There. Okay. All right, so we're back out on the field a little bit more here, and we've met Dean. And Dean, how long have you been in astro imaging, Dean?
Probably going on 6 years now, I guess.
6?
Yeah.
And what kind of setup have you got going on here?
Well, started at the bottom. We got a Los Mandy G11. It is a really great mount. Just rock solid. It's going to suit my needs for years to come.
Well, what was the very first mount you started with?
I started with a Celestron AVX,
Okay.
which was a great beginner's mount, and really enjoyed it. I still use it from time to time, but I needed something with a little bit more, power behind the tracking.
Right. Yeah. And if you remember in the last video we were talking about mounts, everyone we went back to, the distributors were all recommending to start off with that Celestron AVX mount because it really is bulletproof for a beginner just starting out. Because it allows for corrections and mistakes, but you will still wind up using it later on down the line.
Yeah.
So it's not a throwaway mount by any stretch. It can still be used, right?
Yeah. I had a Schmidt-Cassegrain C8 that I put on it, and so I still use that for narrow field planetary stuff and small planetary nebula.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What size scope have we got here?
This is a 106. It's a Takahashi quadruplet.
Y'all remember that? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
it is a great scope, though. It really is a great scope, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a spur of the moment buy. It
right,
was something
right.
I planned for a while. Yeah.
And after being in it for 6 years, though, I mean that you start moving up after a while. I mean, what was the very first scope you had?
Well, it was that C8, and it was great. But one of the things I found was like large nebula. Mm-hmm. You can't get the whole thing in the field of view of a
right.
C8, and so this offers a much wider field of view. It's about a full degree. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I went out and did was do the Horsehead Nebula, and
got all of it.
All of it with yeah.
And what's the camera we got on here? It's
is
that S-Big?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
S-Big 8300 STT 8300.
Mono.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mono. With filter wheel and guider.
And what objects are you going after tonight?
Well, I'm going to go back and do an oldie but a goodie.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
M13.
Hey, there we go. You don't hear that a lot. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't done it in a long time, and I was looking back through some images, and they didn't have perfect focus before and all of that. So I'm going to go back and do that, and then maybe the Sol Nebula, if I can get it. I think it dips down pretty early, and also a eclipsing binary that is going to be a red dwarf nova, a red nova in 2022, I believe.
Okay.
So look that up.
Getting it now. Get it now before it goes.
Yeah.
Get the picture now, and then when it happens. So.
Yeah, I'm going to do some photometry on it.
Cool. So what was the worst mistake you ever made? The first mistake you ever made in coming into astro imaging, and what would you correct about it to advise somebody new who's just starting out?
Yeah, let me count the ways. But I guess probably read the manual, right? Don't just don't start putting stuff together, because what happened to me, and I am admitting this on YouTube, right? I plugged in the RA and the DEC cables backwards, and I started out, and the thing was just going all over the place, and yeah, it took me reading the manual to realize that. So read up, and it makes things easier.
Read the manual. Don't do the man thing, because I never read the manual either. I just started, and then when I screwed it up, I was like, oh, maybe I should have read the manual.
Exactly.
So read the manual. Thanks, man.
All right.
All right, and believe it or not, there's actually women in astro imaging. I kid you not. And we have here Miss Amy. Amy is a member here at Charlie Elliott. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
And how long have you been a member out here?
Since November.
November. So just new kind of here.
I'm new. They found me and invited me, and I said, okay, I'm going to take a 2-hour drive to the middle of nowhere and meet a bunch of strange guys I met on Facebook. And thankfully it turned out safe, and I'm here today.
This is why you don't let your teenage daughters out of the house. Don't do that. But it is a really great community here.
This is a terrific community. I have learned so much from these guys. I would not be at this point this fast without them.
Right, and that's the advantage. That's why we're saying, get involved into a local astronomy club, because there's a lot of knowledge you can get, and as a newcomer,
There is.
you don't get that a lot, right?
No, it's a lot of shared knowledge. Everybody has a little bit of something to add. So this isn't my creation. This is everybody's creation, hodgepodge together to make something awesome.
Right on. So what size scope have we got on here?
This is an Explorer Scientific ED-102 carbon fiber tube. It's got about a 714 millimeter reach. It's on a Skywatcher mount, an EQ6R, so it's a beast. It can hold up to 44 pounds. I weighed this puppy in at 32 pounds today. He needs to go on a diet, but don't we all?
And this goes back to when we were talking about mounts and you wanted to check your payload. You always, as we were saying, if you start with that 28-pound payload mount, you don't have a lot of room to go up from there.
No.
But if you go a little larger on the mount, then you got some room to grow. So
you need a good foundation. You
Right.
really do. Don't start cheap. Go as far as you can, and then grow on this side.
And what's the camera we're using here?
This is a ZWO ASI 071 Color Cool. I was not brave enough to go with the mono version. That'll be my next step. And I've got a newly purchased Moonlight Nightcrawler.
From our friend Ron at
Ron.
Moonlight Focuser. So this is another type of focuser that he has on his website as well.
They are amazing. I installed this thing in under an hour by myself with a couple of screwdrivers. Downloaded the software, and it was up and running computer-wise in a few minutes. I've never had anything that easy.
Amy's showing me up because she heard me talk about the story when I got my regular Moonlight Focuser. It took me 3 days to get it set up.
Girl
Girl
Boy,
power,
you know.
girl power.
Oh yeah, but I mean that focuses and it rotates the camera, so I can do a frame and focus, plan a mosaic out. It will rotate my camera dead on exactly how I want the picture in my mind to be, and it's just totally awesome. It took me 3 tries to plate solve. I've never done that before.
Wow.
Usually it's a whole lot longer,
It's a whole lot
and you're
longer,
scratching your
yeah.
head, and why does it take so long? I'm in the general area, but that was perfect.
So what advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out in the hobby and they said, you know what, I want to go out and I want to take pictures like I see out on the web. What would be your kernel of knowledge to pass on to these people right here?
Don't do what I did, which was I winged it. I had an idea. I didn't know what I could do. The best thing that happened is when I joined the club and I started talking with people, they found me through Facebook. They just saw me asking all these random newbie questions. They were nice. They didn't make fun of me. I was waiting for some of the pokes at the girls.
Yeah.
What are you doing on a boys' field?
Right.
But joining the club was the best thing I ever did to share knowledge. That and some Facebook. I mean, I talk with a guy over in the UK who's just wonderful. He answers all of my questions, and we talk back and forth, and we share, little tips and tidbits. I've talked to guys in Australia, yeah, it's a little dangerous on the line, but they know I'm in the USA. That's about as far as we're going to go. But just reach out and ask questions. I haven't had one person be mean to me online or anything, and they've answered all my questions.
Cool. And what object are we going after tonight?
Well, I could say the pinwheel, but we had a lot of poking in the meeting on that one, so I might go after the whirlpool tonight. I haven't done that one in a while with this brand new setup, so
Right.
I'm still in testing phase.
Cool. Well, good luck. And,
Thank you.
And be there. Okay, so it's almost twilight, and everybody's getting set up. Actually, it is twilight at this point.
Most
It is
certainly
twilight.
is.
And we are seriously wasting some valuable setup time, but I managed to grab him at the last minute. And so this is Mike.
Hi.
And Mike, you are the director,
I am, in fact, the director of Charlie Elliott Astronomy Club.
Charlie Elliott Astronomy. And how did Charlie Elliott get started?
Well, we are actually a spin-off of the Atlanta Astronomy Club. And we've been out here, I think, about 7 years or so. And, it's just a great place to meet, and a lot of people recognized it as such, where you have fantastic meeting facilities here in the state park, and we have this relatively dark sky site that we can meet in right afterward, and it's just in a good location, still near Atlanta, near enough for most of the people. We got guys from the north side, and plenty from Gwinnett County from our location, but it's just a good place.
And y'all do a lot of outreach to
Yes.
the local community as well, in helping membership and growing. I mean, you don't even have to be a member, is that correct, in order to come to a meeting?
No, not at all. The
you'd be
meetings,
invited.
as we famously say, are free and open to the public. And we encourage anybody with any kind of interest in astronomy whatsoever, astrophysics, or what have you, to come to our meetings. It's, usually we have like a lot of PhD students come and lecture. I mean, you just name it, solar system objects or deep sky, dark matter, everything's been discussed at some point or another in our club meetings. So,
Right.
all are welcome.
That's great. And if they want to get in touch with the Charlie Elliott group, where should they go?
Okay, well, we have a Facebook page.
Okay,
which is
Facebook. That's a good thing.
Facebook, and we have a web page, and we have links on there to contact people like me, the director, and our outreach coordinators, and things of that nature. There's links you can email us directly, and we will respond.
And what's the web address for everybody?
It's ceastronomy.org.
ceastronomy.org. Right.
Or just Charlie, just write in Charlie Elliott Astronomy in the search.
And it'll pull right
It'll
up.
pull up.
Cool.
Yep.
And how long have you been a member out here, Charlie?
About 3 years.
3
out
years.
here.
I just called him Charlie.
Charlie. Well,
Because
Charlie
I was
Elliott.
thinking Charlie Elliott, right? It's not. It's actually Mike.
It's not the first time. I kid you not.
I get that too. And people call me different things all the time. So last off, for somebody who's just beginning, who's just wanting to get into the world of astroimaging, what would be your suggestion to that person? The very first, if there was one thing, only one thing that you would tell them, what would it be?
Join a club.
Join a club.
Join a club, absolutely. Everybody makes mistakes buying equipment in the beginning, and it's just there's so much product out there in the market, and you can really make a mistake early on. And so spend some time with a club. Find out what your interest is. Some people photograph planetary, some people do deep sky. Some folks do both, but there's a lot to learn, and it's a big universe. So you can, whenever your heart's content, you can find it. I think so.
Okay, so this looks a little scary, but it's actually, we're past Twilight now, and everyone's starting to get lined up, and
except for me.
Except for
Yes.
Steve, because Steve did a new person's initial mistake. At least that's what I would have done too.
Yes,
and I did that a couple of times. You want to tell everybody what it was?
Well, okay, so I've been doing this for a while. That does not exempt me from making stupid mistakes, so don't feel bad if you've done something like this. But I have a couple of different mounts, and I had this particular scope in back, an Explore Scientific ED127 CF with the FCD100 glass, and I had it on my Losmandy G11 from Explore Scientific, and had a D-size dovetail, the wider Losmandy dovetail, and my AVX mount that I was going to put it on, because I'm not imaging tonight, I'm doing some visual stuff, and you are allowed to do that, by the way, if you're an astrophotographer.
Yeah, I was going to say,
just saying,
you can actually do visual.
you're allowed.
You can do visual.
Yes,
So
yes.
if you just take pictures, you can look at
You
stuff.
can. Steve said.
Steve said you can
yes.
do it.
So I went to go put my scope on my mount, and the big Losmandy D-style dovetail does not fit in the Vixen style saddle on the AVX. So here I am.
There is a difference between Losmandy and Vixen.
Yes.
Two different things.
Two things. So here I was at Twilight begging for tools and bolts, and my buddy Kevin in the background, who I think you talked to earlier, loaned me a dovetail, so I had did some surgery as it was getting dark, and back in business.
But
in business.
That's a great thing about this hobby, though, is that everybody's so close, because it's such a limited hobby of who does it.
It is.
But everybody's willing to help each other. So out in the middle of the field when it's dark and you can't see anything, I've had it happen where somebody on the field up at Deer Lake needed a cable, and I just happened to have an ST4 cable.
Nice.
And we just, we helped each other out. I had
you can't go to Family Dollar and buy those.
Damn it. Yeah, I mean, you just can't do it. There's nothing out here, people,
Nothing.
except for the outhouse.
Yes,
the porta potty's here.
And if you're ever thinking about coming out to Charlie Elliott and joining us, the porta potty is maintained regularly, so it's not cooking out in the sun for weeks at a time.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
And Steve, you're part of the Charlie Elliott group as well.
I am.
You're actually on the board. Is that correct?
I am, yes. So prior to tonight, I was the program coordinator, and we're doing some musical chairs, and I am going to be the observing coordinator now.
The observing coordinator.
Yes.
Cool.
So my last role was to go find people to come talk to us, and now I'm going to be the observing coordinator, helping new folks learn the sky, coming up with targets each month. So kind of as a club, what we do, we come up with a couple of targets each month we want to focus on, and that's for imagers and observers. So
Right.
we have a beginner object, kind of an intermediate object, and like a challenge object. And one month we had a challenge object. It was a globular cluster inside Andromeda.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And that's stuff you don't see all the time, and it's probably not great for a beginner to jump right into, but it probably is something to at least go after.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
to try to get
Or-
to that level to get something like
You know,
that.
a lot of times there's people out here with these big scopes, that are 20 inches and bigger, and, walk up, take a look.
Size
Take a
can
look.
be important.
Yes.
Size can be important.
Aperture is king in visual, aperture is not king in astrophotography. That was the big mistake I made when I put a camera on my telescope. I put a big scope on a small mount and thought I was going to take pictures.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you've been watching all the other videos, we talk about pixel scale, we talk about guide scale, we talk about the imaging scale, we talk about the proper mount with the proper telescope, and you can really mess that up
Right.
if you're not careful, if you're not doing all the things that we're trying to show you now to do, because you can get out there with one of those little AVX mounts trying to stick a 20-inch SCT on the top, but actually I don't even think they make an SCT that big, do they?
I have actually seen a 16-inch SCT on an AVX. And
That's bad.
It was scary. It was scary. I thought it was going to fall over, but it held it, but it shook like a leaf.
Yeah.
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 So you can do it just like you can drive with your feet, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea.
It's a good idea, exactly. Steve's actually the guy who got in contact with me on the site and invited me out here to Charlie Elliott, and I'm really glad I came out here, and I had a great time. And if you want to talk about just a great group of people out here, just so friendly, so incredibly welcoming and open. Quite honestly, after I just covered my own light up. Quite honestly, I want you to see I'm not lying. So honestly, after tonight, I'm actually going to sign up, and I think I'm going to become a member of Charlie
Awesome.
Elliott, because I've
Awesome.
had such a really great time out here, and certainly you find people that are doing the exact same thing you're doing, and they at least know more than I do. This guy knows a lot more than I do.
I don't know about that.
There's a lot I can learn
I've watched
here.
your videos. I don't know about that.
Well, Steve, thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
And thank you for having me out here.
Well, thanks for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thank you.